moving system. Let's show you the cloud view of this particular weather system in the mid-Atlantic, and it's separating more and more from the upper level winds, so it's cutting off to some extent. And you can see the clouds rotating around this large area of lower pressure aloft. Meanwhile, the surface low is located, as we mentioned, in southeast Pennsylvania. Biggest problem has been some coastal flooding and torrential rainfall. Now, the current weather map shows an area of high pressure here in Ontario, another stronger high. The center of it is off the screen out of view here, but there's a very strong high right up across eastern Canada, and it's the difference in pressure between eastern Canada and the mid-Atlantic which is giving us this exceptionally strong wind field across Long Island, heading into southwest Connecticut, and then stretching back to the northwest into the Catskills in southern New York. Lots of rain. We've had widespread rain totals of 3 to 5 inches, just to mention a few. Iceland, New Jersey, 6.3 inches. Washington's Crossing has picked up almost 4 inches of rain, and in Newark, Delaware, just about 3.5 inches of rainfall. We've noticed in particular one area of very heavy rain that has been progressing across Nassau County. This entire band has been generally pushing off to the northeast. There's a bit of a jump in the radar data here for you, but the remnants of that band still linger at this hour right across northwestern Suffolk County and the northeastern quarter of Nassau County. Notice the rain shield stretching all the way back across northern New Jersey, and interestingly enough, the southern edge of the rain doesn't appear to be making much progress. If you notice, from the beginning to the end of this radar sequence, which comprises about 45 to 50 minutes in time, the back edge of the rain is not progressing much to the north. And that's a problem, because as long as this relationship holds true and it's a slow-moving system, we're going to have strong southeast winds funneling additional heavy rain into the New York City area, northernmost New Jersey, and also as you head into the western half of Long Island and southwest Connecticut, and then stretching up past Westchester County. So very heavy rain for parts of Long Island. Speaking of Long Island, our own Mike Seidel has been on location up in Kings Park in northwest Suffolk County throughout this afternoon. And Mike, why don't you go ahead and give us an update?
Hello, Declan. Can you hear me? Okay, Declan, this is Mike Seidel, and I'm reporting live, of course, from Nassau County on the North Shore. And we're getting hurricane-force wind gusts right now off the east-northeast. The surf is crashing at 6 to 8 feet. It's quite an event up here. I mean, we've got surf crashing up to the boardwalk, and as a result, excuse me, sir, can you move out of the way? We've got surf crashing up to the boardwalk, and we've also had problems with damage. We've got fences. The fence has been blown down. We've got a building, which is right behind me, which was taken down the beach. It was destroyed as it hit the jetty. Incredible weather up here tonight. Heavy rains. We've had power outages with trees down over power lines. Also, there's been quite a bit of street and urban flooding, as you can well imagine, with this horizontal rainfall. As a result, it is just a very stormy evening, and it's not going to get much better. By the way, high tide occurred about half an hour ago. It's now on its way out, but we expect the high tide to be even worse tomorrow morning. Declan, back to you in the studio. We'll talk to you again in about 30 minutes.
Okay, again, that's our own Mike Seidel reporting from a very windy and wet north shore of Long Island in Kings Park near the Sunken Meadow Park. And it's been a wild and wet day for a lot of the tri-state. We've had numerous power outages reported, lots of tree limbs down over some of the local roadways, causing a lot of travel difficulty, and exceptionally heavy rain. We've already talked about that. I also want to mention the fact that we've had record rain reported in both Newark, New Jersey, and also at Central Park. We've had over 3 inches of rain today. That was enough to establish a rainfall record. All right, let's talk more about this particular storm, this slow-moving storm system, as it continues to make its way towards the New Jersey coastline. And again, as long as this southeast wind, this easterly wind flow is coming in off the Atlantic, we're going to be setting up for additional flooding problems, the high surf, the coastal flooding at the time of high tides. A little tough to see the sound on this particular larger view, but we've had east winds just howling down through the sound. When that occurs, it piles the water up on the western edge of the sound where Mike is located, and hence the problems with the coastal flooding. Meanwhile, down in the Bronx, still getting some moderate to heavy rain. It's been like that most of the day, and for that reason, no World Series tonight. That's right, the first game has been canceled. The second game is slated for tomorrow. Earlier today, these were the scenes, of course, the infield covered with the tarp, but you can see quite a significant accumulation of rainwater there along parts of the dugout steps and into the dugout. And a little tough to say right now whether the second game would be canceled, but you saw the radar. If that continues well into the night, it's going to be a very waterlogged outfield, to say the least. And at least from the weather part of the story, it's not looking too good for at least early tomorrow. So we'll see how things get underway as that rain continues to push its way slowly north into Jersey. Strong wind gusts. There are some of the representative wind gusts within the past hour, including 55 miles an hour as you head out to the south of Riverhead, out on the east side of the island, right in through here. We've had reports of 55-mile-an-hour winds around Islip. There's been a traffic mishap, an airline mishap, apparently a jet skidding off the runway at LaGuardia. Speaking of airports, we have reports from earlier today of 4.5-hour delays at Newark. Now, things have improved at Newark because the weather has increased or improved a little bit, but please call ahead. And we just received some information that LaGuardia is closed at least until 7 tonight. Again, LaGuardia Airport has been closed at least until 7. It may not reopen at all tonight, so you're going to need to call ahead and get the latest regarding LaGuardia. There are numerous gale warnings out, storm warnings because of the intensification of the system, and as Mike mentioned, that threat of coastal flooding, especially in the Sound, southward along the coast to Barnegat Inlet. Now, there's another area of active weather. It's the hurricane. It's moving quickly to the east-northeast at 28 miles an hour, and we certainly hope that this hurricane...
Total based on radar estimates. Any yellow area would be an amount of 1 to 2 inches. Any red area would be 3 to 4 inches. Some of the heaviest rain, of course, has now ended, but the possibility of flooding still does exist. So the National Weather Service has issued a flood warning for Monroe County, and that will continue until 9 o'clock tonight. The rest of us are under a flood watch, and that is until 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. That's all of eastern Pennsylvania, virtually all of New Jersey, and northern Delaware. More rain is on the way. I'll show you just when to expect it with the Earthwatch forecast in just a few minutes.
All right, thank you, Bill. And it sounds like you've got more warnings coming in with that beeping going on in the background. Well, today's downpours caused more headaches than anything else, especially for people who were flooded out of their homes over the summer.
Now News 10's Mike Strug is joining us live from a soggy Bucks County area. Mike.
Here we go again. The rains came down and the creeks rose up. For most of us, looking at rapids like those behind me, just an idle curiosity, the power of nature. But for the folks who live alongside streams like this one, 1996 has been a nightmare.
Property. Financially, I'm destroyed over the thing. I hate to leave, but I can't take no more water.
That's what John LaBaja had to say the last time we talked on August 1st. We stood on the bridge that connects the house that he had to canoe away from on June 12th with the trailer he and his family have been living in ever since. Today, for the 5th time since June, he had to abandon ship again. John, you got hit again this morning. The babbling brook turned into the raging torrent.
One more time. The water came about a foot from the bottom of the trailer we're in now, so we bailed out just in case. But God was with us, and we didn't go under this time.
Why do you stay here? Why don't you just get out?
Financially, we're really stuck here. As it is now, I'm paying a mortgage on what's left of my house and renting a trailer, and I almost lost it again this morning. But to get through all of this, we have to just stay with it.
Financially, you just can't get out. You can't sell this property.
To my knowledge, who would want to come down and buy it from me? It's just even that you have it's a responsibility to put it back together. You can't just walk away from your life. We've lost enough.
Now, John is actually rebuilding on the very same site, but this time around, there will be a garage on the first floor. Living quarters will be on the second floor, some 8 to 10 feet above the ground and presumably, and hopefully, above any floodwaters. Live in Pendle, I'm Mike Strug, News 10.
All right, thank you, Mike. More effects of the drenching rain were felt farther south in Delaware. This is the Brandywine Creek in Wilmington. It could be a rough swim for anyone caught in the raging water. The force was apparently enough to knock over a tree. And here's one umbrella that wasn't quite up to the job. All of this along the rain-swollen Brandywine Creek today. And the drenching rain earlier today made it difficult to drive. Here at Henry Avenue in Roxborough was underwater. Officials closed the street at Valley Road. At one point, the rain fell so fast that at least one driver had to abandon his car.
What a day. It was also raining buckets of water down the shore today, and News 10's Christine Perez reports now from Atlantic County.
There was considerable flooding down the Jersey Shore this morning, even before high tide. In the town of Margate, motorists could barely get through. Dozens of roads like this one were closed. Many people left their cars behind and tried to battle the elements on foot. And this is just from the rain, not high tide. While folks here say this is the worst they've seen it, they say they're pretty used to this.
I'm kind of used to it. Drainage here is really bad when it rains, and I'm used to it.
Strong winds also knocked down this bus shelter. And in the town of Ventnor, leaves clogged up drains, creating messes like this.
Cleaning the storm drains, getting free of the debris, the leaves and everything, so it'll run to the other side and into the bay.
Few people could be seen on the Atlantic City boardwalk early this morning. Most chose to stay indoors.
Gambling, of course. Why not? Why do you come to Atlantic City? Not to walk the boardwalk.
But there were a few brave souls, like this man who chose today of all days to take his granddaughter for a rolling chair ride on the boardwalk.
We had to get up here and get on the boardwalk. It's been many years for me and the first time ever for her.
By midday, though, the cloudy skies had already turned into blue ones, with most people saying, that wasn't so bad after all.
This is a special edition of WeatherScope, comprehensive severe weather coverage from the Weather Channel.
Good afternoon from the Weather Channel Forecast Center. We continue to follow a well-developed storm system now as it moves its way slowly from southeast Pennsylvania towards the coast of New Jersey, but it won't arrive there until sometime tomorrow morning. This storm has already produced, among other things, record rain in Central Park and at Newark in northern New Jersey, and it's also apparently produced hurricane-force wind gusts on Fire Island on the south side of Long Island. In just a minute or two, we'll join our own Mike Seidel on the north shore of Long Island. He's been reporting throughout the afternoon on the increasingly strong winds and the pounding surf on Long Island Sound. But let's look at the satellite view first and get the cloud canopy with this one. And you can see those clouds stretching from Rhode Island westward all the way back towards Detroit, Michigan. Meanwhile, the cloud motion to the south clearly shows that the air upstairs is flowing from West Virginia off the coast around Norfolk, Virginia. So the big counterclockwise circulation of air, the surface low is in southeast Pennsylvania. But this is a slow-moving system, and that's one of the problems, because since it's a slow mover and it's separated to a great extent from the main jet stream back in northern Minnesota, this thing is pretty much left on its own to wobble eastward towards the coast and then perhaps drift a little bit more into Tuesday. High pressure, one located in Ontario, another one as you head over to easternmost Canada, and it's the difference in pressure between the high and the low that's giving us these strong winds coming in across the Atlantic. And also we can point out that due to the fact that the air travels a great distance across the Atlantic, it has many hours to pick up moisture from the Atlantic and then produce these pockets of moderate to heavy rain. One interesting facet of the storm has been the fact that earlier today, the back edge of this rain band was progressing very steadily from Delaware through central and southern New Jersey, but all of a sudden this afternoon the system has, or at least the rain edge has really slowed down. And the problem with that is, as long as that rain band is staying here and then pivoting around to the southwest there, we're going to see a continuation of these pockets of moisture coming in off the Atlantic and the moderate to heavy rain. So what we're hoping is that eventually the back edge of this rain will progress farther north and bring in at least somewhat drier air to New York City, where again, as I mentioned, we've had record rain at Central Park. You notice on Doppler radar, all of northern New Jersey just covered with moderate rainfall. We had heavy rain bands coming in on the south side of Long Island. We told you about that wind gust of 80 miles per hour. We've also had wind gusts of 53 miles per hour out at the airport in Farmingdale. And more rain just continuing to work its way from southeast to northwest. Westchester County also getting pummeled by the continuous moderate to heavy rainfall. Speaking of Long Island, as I mentioned a moment ago, our own Mike Seidel has been pounded by high winds, and also he's been taking part in some of that heavy surf. Mike, give us an update on what's happening late this afternoon.
Well, Declan, you can probably see here that we are getting pounded. These are lashing rainfalls. It's raining horizontally. This is about as hard as it's rained all day. The winds are gusting to hurricane force, if not higher. The good news about the surf is the tide is now going out, but another high tide tomorrow morning about 6 a.m., and we expect that to be worse. We've already had some damage right here at Sunken Meadow Beach here on the North Shore. I apologize earlier, I said Nassau County, but of course we all know this is Suffolk County, New York. As far as driving tonight, the best bet is stay home. All the parkways basically in Westchester County have water closures. Belt Parkway, South Shore, Long Island, the FDR over in Manhattan, all because of all the rainfall, and in some cases because of the water backing up into the river and into the Long Island Sound, Declan.
And Mike, earlier today we talked about the idea that this system, since it has such strong east winds coming down the Sound where you are, this system and all its strong winds is not going to allow for the water to roll out during low tide tonight. So then high tide tomorrow, perhaps even worse than what you had today at 6.
That's right. In fact, I mentioned earlier, one of the locals thought the low tide this afternoon was 2 feet above normal, and tonight's high tide, or the one about 5:30, was lashing up against the boardwalk, and a lifeguard station, a building about a 20 by 20 foot building, was taken out. The force of the water rolled it down the beach, and then it crashed into the sea jetty, and we've got that to show you a little later on tape. One big news item tonight, besides the fact that the World Series has been canceled for obvious reasons, is that we've just found out in the past half an hour that LaGuardia Airport, has been shut down because of the wind and the rain, but primarily because of the wind. And any flights in and out of Kennedy and Newark, the other two major airports in the city, expect some significant delays on most of those flights. So once again, Declan, LaGuardia Airport has been shut down for the time being. As soon as we hear it's reopened, we'll let you know. But a very, very stormy night here on the North Shore, Long Island, and we expect, again, the tides to be even worse tomorrow.
Okay, again, thanks a lot, Mike. Mike reporting from Kings Park on the northwest side of Suffolk County, up along the North Shore, bordering that rough-looking Long Island Sound. Well, Mike has been stationed there most of the afternoon. The winds have been getting stronger. We've talked about those hurricane-force winds down on the south side of the island, around Fire Island. Let's go ahead and take a look at the big radar view for you. And you can see the rain extends as far west and north as Buffalo to York. There's a big slot of dry air that's come in. It's very typical with these systems, the systems that we refer to occasionally as negative tilt. Strongest winds actually come down to the south of the center of the storm, and that helps to twist everything around much quicker here to the south as opposed to the north, and it allows the rain to shoot back in towards the northwest. And this is exactly what we have going on this evening. So in addition to the heavy rain, the high threat for flooding and the coastal flooding at high tide, it's just going to be a wild night for travelers through the tri-state. 58-mile-an-hour wind gusts reported now as you head over towards Islip's MacArthur Field. 55 down around Suffolk Airfield in West Hampton, and these winds are going to stay quite brisk through this evening. A big concern today has been the fact that the wind has been coming down the entire length of Long Island Sound. The way this storm has been set up over here in eastern PA, the wind field has pretty much produced this brisk east wind, and that has most effectively piled the water up into the west edge of the sound. Did you also notice how the width of the sound decreases here? Well, that's funneling it in. It's almost compounding the effect. If we can get a northeast wind, it would tend to make things better. But the problem is, since this is such a slow-moving system, we're afraid that this easterly wind is going to persist well into the evening, and that means tomorrow at the time of high tide, here we go again, and in fact, it could be worse. If it stays windy all night from the east, we could be looking at tide levels maybe 1 to 2 feet less than the big December nor'easter back in 1992. I'm sure folks out in Long Island and New York City remember that one. Gale warnings are in effect. Also, we do have storm warnings from Watch Hill, Rhode Island, past Horseneck Beach over to the Cape, all the way up to Chatham, Massachusetts. And also a reminder that we do have coastal flood warnings in effect from Watch Hill through all of Long Island Sound. The south side of the island also under a coastal flood warning, and then you can take that flood warning all the way down to Barnegat Inlet in central coastal New Jersey. So a very interesting storm system, to say the least. And keep in mind, since it's such a slow-moving storm system cut off from the jet stream, it doesn't seem like there's much opportunity for this thing to necessarily get kicked out of here too soon. So we're going to be dealing with it for quite some time. Now, as Mike mentioned a moment ago, one of the effects of the storm has been the cancellation of the first game of the World Series. It was supposed to take place this evening in Yankee Stadium, but as you can see earlier today, certainly not looking like the type of place you'd like to play a ball game, especially as one as important as this one coming up. Now, a big question on a lot of folks' minds is, hey, are we going to get this thing underway tomorrow? Well, as far as the weather is concerned, the heaviest rain is targeted for the New York City metro area through at least early this evening. It may continue beyond that. It's all going to depend on whether some of that drier air can work in from the south. If the heavy rain stays with us through most of the night, it's hard to imagine that things could get underway as we head into tomorrow. But again, just some conjecture at this point in time. The main concern, of course, the coastal